Not all Jews eat gefilte fish. Trees Cry for Rain explores the unique cultural traditions of Sephardic Jews who come from Spain and the Ottoman Empire. Born and raised in Turkey, Rachel Bortnick grew up speaking Ladino and eating burekas, and never heard of gefilte fish until she came to America, where she discovered just how different the predominant Ashkenazic heritage of American Judaism was from her own. In the film, Bortnick shares the unique language, music, and food traditions of her childhood in Turkey. Rabbi Marc Angel, Rabbi Emeritus of the Spanish-Portuguese Synagogue in New York, joins us to give more insight into the Sephardic tradition.
So you wrote a book called Foundations of Sephardic Spirituality. Could you tell us a little bit about the book, and specifically because so many of the what are considered non-Ashkenazic Jewish, the Jews in New York specifically, are actually Jews from Middle Eastern countries. That's those are very different traditions from those of, let's say, my ancestors and your ancestors who came from the former Ottoman Empire.
Right. Just like when people say Jews, well, they aren't all from Eastern Europe. There are German Jews and the Hungarian Jews, and the Ashkenazim themselves are not one thing. There's great variety among Ashkenazic Jews. But among Sephardic Jews, or people called Sephardic, there are also more variations. Jews from Africa and Asia, the Middle East. Each civilization deserved its own treatment. In my book, I dealt with Ladino speaking, that's Judeo-Spanish speaking, because that's my own particular heritage. And I think it dominates the Sephardic world for the last 500 years in many ways, culturally and spiritually. So I came to the conclusion, very much like Rachel Bortnick in her film, by the way, that we're at the sunset of this Judeo-Spanish civilization. It's just really the end. There's no more living community where this is the living language, where this is the living way of doing things. It's more nostalgia. Rachel is of the last generation of natural-born speakers of the language, which I'm not. I'm already one step removed from that. But I'm probably the generation that will last remember having spoken to people or listened to people speak this language in a natural way.
I guess there's some revival of the music and of the culture, but do we just mourn that strand of Jewish life is not going to exist anymore?
I don't know if mourning is the right word. We have to acknowledge that there is a change. History changes. Nothing stays stagnant. And I think one of the reasons I wrote my book was I want to look at the history and traditions of that people, who I think have reached the end of their historical experience, with all due respect to ourselves. And what is there in that tradition that's meaningful to the next generation and 5 generations from now of people who aren't of this background at all? But I think there are certain key ingredients in that culture: optimism, self-respect, a certain sense of dignity, a certain openness to the world at large, singing love songs, even among religious people. No one's had any problem singing love songs. So there's a certain naturalness among the Sephardic Jews of Ladino-speaking background, which doesn't exist so much in other communities. So I want the public at large to know, hey, we had something very special for 500 years, and it's meaningful not just to me for nostalgic reasons, it's meaningful to you, even if you had nothing to do with it. It's part of our Jewish civilization.